KwaZulu-Natal Premier Thami Ntuli says crowded beaches indicate an influx of tourists to the province, which will boost its economy. South Africa's borders were reportedly busier in November of 2025, as new data showed a sharp year-on-year rise in international travel. Professor of Tourism Geography at Vaal University of Technology, Kaitano Dube, joins us now for more. Prof, a happy new year to you, and thank you so much for joining us this afternoon. So tourism, like I said, spiked especially in November of 2025 in South Africa. What factors do you believe contribute to the surge, and what does it indicate about our country's tourism sector?
Okay, compliments of the new year to you and your viewers. Thanks for having me. Now, I think there are quite a number of factors that gave rise, I think, to some of the significant numbers that we have seen. I think in many respects, the increase in numbers that we have seen indicates and points to the resilience of the tourism sector, both from the impacts of the global COVID-19 pandemic, and also I think the extreme weather events that we have seen, which have had in some instances adverse impact on the tourism numbers. But this also is an indication, I think, of the robust marketing campaign that has been done, particularly by our tourism marketing agencies, looking at Tourism SA. I know colleagues from the Tourism Business Council of South Africa, they've been doing a bit, and I think if you were to ask them, they will tell you that the Trevor Noah campaign is also bearing some of the fruits that we anticipated to see. But we also have seen a number of international events that have projected South Africa as a choice destinations. We had G20. I think that was on the shores of South Africa, run up to some of the global events like Indaba and Meetings Africa that occurred earlier during the year. So the increase in numbers shows confidence, resilience in the South African tourism product, but also its capacity to provide a global competitive tourism product, so to speak. Our natural resources are comparable to none. Couple that with the, I think, with the regional other supporting destinations. You mentioned Victoria Falls, and you also look at some of the products in Tanzania as some of the iconic draw cards. We have also seen, if you look at Cape Town, an intensified campaign, particularly in terms of ensuring that that particular destination, you have got adequate air connectivity. I think at the close of 2025, we have seen them linking to Sao Paulo, and also I think we are anticipating quite a number of busy routes with Dubai, and also look at Sao Paulo, Brazil, and other destinations.
Sure. And I'm sure, I mean, you spoke about just some of those initiatives that exist, especially within agencies. But if we speak of government initiatives like the Tourism Growth Partnership Plan between 2025 and 2029, that's aiming to increase that international people coming into the country to about 15 million. What do you think there would be the key strategies that we'd need to put in place in order to achieve this target?
Okay, so in order for us to get there are quite a number of issues, I think, that we need to address. One of the key issues that we need to address, I think, is the issue that has to do with the safety and security of tourists. And I think if you look at, I think, the previous years, we had issues, particularly in Kruger National Park, in one of the gates. And I think that issue has been addressed, and we have also seen quite a number of issues, I think, around Cape Town, but you can also see some active engagement with some of the issues, particularly that pertains to issues of safety and security. But if you look at our coastal destinations, they have also been affected by issues that has to do with our declining in terms of governance standards across some of South African municipalities. You mentioned KwaZulu-Natal. And I think one of the deterrent factors that he has been concerned particularly to tourists, has been the cleanliness of the coastal areas, the beaches. But if you also, we might need also to look at our regional tourism product, given I think some of the indications and the inflections that we see, particularly coming from the United States of America, we might need to ensure that we build more resilience, particularly with partners within the BRICS. So we need to look within BRICS, but we need also to look at SADC. And within SADC, what are some of the teething issues that we need to address? Of course, safety and security, but we also need to deal with the sentiment or the feeling that South Africa is anti-foreigner, particularly if you look at the tourism brothers and sisters.
Does domestic tourism have an influence on the international tourism?
Domestic tourism have got impact, particularly when we look at the local economic development. And if we do our domestic tourism better, I think it have got a potential to also project, particularly if we use some of the catalytic tools that we have, particularly if you look at the issues of social influences. We have seen the advent of social influencers coming into the fray. So if we have got more South Africans that are traveling locally, they are also able to assist in the terms of the marketing and the brand of the South African tourism product, which can actually benefit us in terms of reducing some of the costs that we have to incur in terms of our marketing. And I think South Africans in generally have been going out to try and engage with the tourism product. Regardless of the economic challenges that they are facing, we have seen a lot of appetite in terms of South Africans going out and actually consuming part of the tourism product. And if you look at our summer season, summer tourism, it's predominantly the domestic people that actually throng some of these destinations, and you buttress that also with the regional tourism product.
You mentioned earlier issues such as cleanliness at our beaches sometimes could be a deterrent for tourists to want to go there. How much of an impact do travel alerts have on people wanting to come to South Africa? We saw the most recent one at the beginning of this festive season where Canada had issued a travel alert to some of their residents with regards to the high levels of crime in South Africa.
Okay, so travel alerts by their nature are meant to conscientize tourists, and as we know that tourists are risk-averse individuals, and if a country does go out and issue out a travel alert, it have got a deterrent effect in terms of the people that might actually want to visit that particular destinations. So we need to address, I think, working through our international relations, we need to address some of the teething problems that we experience that result in us, being labeled, I think, a risk destination, because tourists by nature, they wouldn't want to go to destinations that are risk averse, that are labeled as risk areas. So yes, that does have an impact. And the cleanliness that we're talking about, we're not only talking about cleanliness when we talk about the beaches, we're talking about the influence and the impact of poor water quality, as it have got a detrimental impact on the, I think, on the enjoyment of some of the. We have got a beautiful and vast coastline that we can actually leverage and sell to the domestic and also international market. So we need to get our house in order in that regard.
We most certainly do. You touched on climate change earlier, and it's been increasingly affecting a lot of our coastal as well as our inland tourism destinations. How is the tourism industry as a whole just adapting to some of these environmental challenges?
Okay, so we have seen that there's a lot of work that I think that we have done in terms of trying to understand what are some of the impacts of climate change, particularly on most of our destinations. And so we have got climate change, we have got also climate variability and extreme weather events that have got serious impact, particularly on the infrastructure. And I think if you look at the season that we just came out from. We know that particularly if you look at provinces such as Mpumalanga, we have seen, I think, some of the damaged roads and a bit of scare in terms of Kruger National Park, which have got detrimental impact on some of the infrastructure that is used by tourists. And we are, as a sector, because I'm part and parcel of the tourism sector, doing what we can in terms of enhancing information, giving out relevant weather-related information that sort of tries to capacitate tourists in terms of decision makers and also in terms of travel agents, which assist in terms of reducing the risk and the inconvenience that is actually caused by extreme weather events. So in many respects, climate change is a thing that we are living with, but we are dealing with in a manner that shows us that the sector is developing some level of resilience in many respects.
And what do you think would be then the immediate and the long-term measures that we would need to implement in order for us to be able to protect some of these tourism assets?
We definitely need to invest a bit of some budget that goes towards the tourism product. This will assist in terms of building adaptation. We have got, I think, about 20 national parks that are run by South African national parks. And we have got South African adaptation plan. But what we have not seen, I think, is investment in terms of money being allocated. We have allocated some monies, particularly to municipalities, to actually respond to climate change. But what we have not seen are dedicated resources that are aimed at addressing the issue of climate change. So we need technical capacity, we need knowledge, we need the development of early warning systems, which allows us to be responsive enough. And I think if you look at the work that South African Weather Services has been doing, we almost close to accurate. So when a warning is issued out, in many respects, it turns out to be okay, which assists us in terms of our evacuation. But we also need to have our emergency management plans in place and also equally capacitated with relevant personnel that have got the technical know-how on how to respond to some of the extreme weather events that we have been experiencing.
Yeah. I mean, Prof, earlier I mentioned that the Tourism Growth Partnership Plan runs or looks at efforts between 2025 and 2029. But if we look beyond 2030, what do you see as the most critical steps for us as a country to ensure a sustainable and resilient tourism industry?
Okay, so beyond 2030, which is a year that the National Development Plan lapses, which is a year that the Agenda 2030 on Sustainable Development also lapses, there is need for us to continue to project ourselves as a responsible or an ecotourism destination. So this means that from a tourism product perspective, from both in terms of hotels, our transport system, be it air transport, we need to be seen to be investing in green travel. And in most instances, given that most of our tourism products are nature-based, the nature tourism that we see that is developing from climate change is the one that is looking for a tourism product that is green in terms of reducing the environmental burden that the travel has on the tourism sector. But we also need to be responsive in terms of climate change, particularly on our tourism product. We have seen quite a number of damages, particularly in coastal areas as a result of sea level rise. We then need to start to develop adaptation plans or restorative plans where we can be able to build better in terms of responding to some of the extreme weather events that we have seen. That will project us as a destination. I think we know that we are competing particularly with Namibia, Zimbabwe, and also Botswana in terms of positioning ourselves as a country that is green. So we need to be seen to be greening our tourism product so that we can use that as a marketing tool going forward.
And so that we can reach that 15 million international arrivals number. Thank you so much, Prof, for giving us your insights this afternoon. That was Professor of Tourism Geography at Vaal University of Technology, Kaitano Dube. Thank you so much.